Hello, Jared.
Hi, Alicia.
And welcome, listeners, to another deep dive from Vibrations and Manifestations.
Great to be back.
I feel like today's topic, which is all about identity and choice and our own personal energy, is one of the most practical areas we could explore.
Yeah, but also one of those misunderstood.
Completely. So we're stepping into this concept of the highest self. And we've got a whole stack of sources here, everything from, deep neurobiology to identity-based psychology.
And even some spiritual resonance ideas.
Right. So our mission today is really to cut through all the fluff and figure out not just what the highest self is, but how we actually access it.
In the messy reality of daily life.
Exactly.
Morning. I'm so ready. And I agree. The key is making this feel human accessible. Before we start talking about quantum metaphors, I have to confess something.
Oh,
I spent the first 15 minutes of my morning looking for a missing sock,
okay.
only to realize I was already wearing it.
Been there.
So, if we can find clarity in that kind of chaos, we can definitely find our highest self frequency.
I really appreciate that grounding check. Because you're right, the highest self is so often framed as this destination.
Something you only reach after some Herculean effort.
Yes, and that's the very first thing we have to dismantle today. We have to challenge that common idea that the highest self is this distant, perfected version of you.
It's that feeling of chasing a future avatar who finally gets everything right.
Right.
The one who never reacts, never spirals, never makes an awkward social blunder. It feels like this, mystical ideal.
Or some unreachable finish line.
Yeah, that requires 5 years of perfect meditation and a pristine diet to cross.
And if that's our working definition, we automatically create this huge gap between who we are now and who we think we should be. If we see the highest self as something to be achieved, a goal way off in the future, we constantly feel deficient or lacking right now.
We end up treating alignment like it's a diploma you have to earn through all this rigorous discipline.
And that framing fundamentally implies that we have to, create this highest version of ourselves through struggle and willpower and force.
Instead of recognizing it's already an intrinsic part of us.
Exactly. And our nervous system, it absolutely rebels against that kind of constant self-exertion.
It's not sustainable.
So, immediate reframing. The core concept for today is that the highest self is not something you achieve in the future.
Right.
It's something you access in the present. It's not a finish line. It's a living frequency you can step into, moment by moment.
Regardless of your current circumstances or how successful you are.
Exactly. This deep dive is all about the highest self as an energetic posture, a way of being that reflects your internal coherence.
And we're going to focus relentlessly on the choice point.
That's the key.
That subtle, often inconvenient moment where you choose alignment. It shows up so quietly, in the microseconds before we react.
And it almost always happens before the outcome is decided. The decision itself is what sets the energy for everything that follows.
It's the moment you decide who you're being.
Which then dictates what you're doing. And to make sure this is like a practical workshop, not just a theoretical talk, let's start with a story.
Okay.
A story that puts us right at that moral fork in the road.
Let's set the scene.
So this scenario, it didn't start in my life. It started on screen. I was watching this film where the entire plot just hinges on one single huge decision.
Okay.
The main character had faced this profound betrayal, an injustice so deep it just screamed for retribution.
Oh, the kind of story where you, the audience, are totally invested in the character getting revenge.
Totally. You feel the heat of that betrayal yourself, and you want that satisfying moment of, narrative justice.
It's almost a physical craving for balance to be restored.
Precisely. And the film does this brilliant thing right at the climax. It slows everything down to this painful crawl. The character is standing there at the edge, facing two very clear paths.
The fork in the road.
Path one is the path of retribution. Petty revenge. And it's entirely justified by everything that's happened.
So it promises that instant gratification.
A huge flood of it. And outwardly, it would look powerful, dominant, even deserved.
That's the path that validates the ego, right? It's the I was wrong, so I must correct the scales path.
Yeah.
It's driven by that primal, fight or flight response, prioritizing dominance in the moment over any kind of long-term peace.
But then there's path two. Loving forgiveness, or, if that's too much to ask, just intentional, dignified restraint. And the script makes it really clear this isn't weak or passive. This choice requires immense internal strength.
It's choosing your own dignity over dominating someone else.
Yeah.
Choosing your own internal peace over punishing them.
Exactly. You can feel the moral and energetic weight of that choice.
And this brings us right back to identity, doesn't it? Research on narrative identity shows that these are the moments, these choices at the crossroads are what define our life story.
Who we become in the next act.
Exactly.
So in the film, the character chose revenge. And for a second, the audience cheers. There's this palpable rush of, finally, they got what they deserved. The initial satisfaction is it's intoxicating.
But that rush is always short-lived. And here's the core insight, right? Revenge doesn't actually resolve the betrayal.
No, it creates the next problem.
It's like a perpetual engine of emotional debt.
That's the real cost. The characters' relationships start to fracture, trust erodes, and most painfully, they become someone they don't even like anymore.
Driven by bitterness and control and constant defensiveness.
And the painful clarity hits way too late. The real cost wasn't what they did to the person who wronged them. The cost was what they did to their future self.
They reinforced an identity rooted in victimhood and conflict. An identity you just can't sustain with joy.
That cinematic moment is such a perfect mirror for how we show up every day. Because we don't have those dramatic stakes, but we are constantly at that fork in the road.
In these small, insidious ways.
It shows up as an email from a coworker that you read as passive-aggressive.
Or a comment from a family member that just hits an old, tender wound.
It's that misunderstanding that triggers your instinct to defend your honor, explain yourself over and over, or just prove that your version of reality is the right one.
And you can feel that fork in the road physically, can't you? We have to name the emotional stakes here.
Yes.
You feel that rising defensive heat, that urge to mentally draft the perfect, scathing response that will just shut them down.
You can feel the petty version of yourself activating, demanding the last word.
The tightness in your chest, the clenching in your jaw, your breath getting shallow, that's the physiological warning sign.
That tightness is your nervous system running an old defensive program. It's the conditioned response taking over, trying to prioritize what's familiar over what's actually safe.
It's automatic.
And just recognizing that physical signal is the first step toward reclaiming your choice.
I think we all have a specific memory of a moment like that. For me, it was when a longtime friend, unintentionally, or maybe intentionally, crossed a boundary.
One you thought was well established.
Yeah. And instantly, I felt this ancient childhood rage just flare up. The one that says, I am not safe, and I must fight back and control this narrative right now.
That desire for control is so seductive. It promises immediate relief from the discomfort of being vulnerable.
Exactly. So I started composing the entire conversation in my head. I was creating this detailed script for how I would calmly, logically, and devastatingly prove my point.
The petty version was fully engaged.
Oh, demanding justice. And then I had to stop because I realized the choice wasn't about my friend or the boundary or our history. It was about who I would be on the other side of this conversation.
That is the radical shift. The moment you see the choice isn't about the external thing, but about your internal identity.
Realizing that every single reaction is a vote for the future I'm designing.
So you paused.
I paused. But it wasn't some dramatic long pause. It was just a breath. Just enough to interrupt that automatic emotional loop. And I asked myself, what would my highest self do here?
And it's so important to clarify what that question is not asking. It's not asking what the nicest version would do.
Or the most accommodating, conflict-avoidant version.
Right.
That's the nuance. My initial impulse was to frame the highest self as the version who just lets it go. But that would have been spiritual bypassing. The actual most aligned version, my highest self, is the one who values long-term peace and self-respect.
So in this case,
it meant setting a boundary, but doing it from a place of clarity and groundedness, not from defensiveness or anger.
that is the difference between being true and just being nice. The response from clarity is firm because the boundary was real, but it wasn't sharp or punishing.
It was honest, not defensive. It prioritized the health of the relationship by, prioritizing the integrity of my own self-respect.
And what was the result?
It was fascinating because my energy had shifted. The external energy had to shift too. The conversation softened almost immediately. But the biggest win for me was that I didn't carry that emotional residue around for the rest of the week.
You didn't replay it.
Didn't replay it, didn't search for better lines. I walked away knowing I had reinforced a new, chosen identity. I had voted for the highest possible future for myself, and that future included peace.
That feeling of not carrying the emotional debt, that is the verifiable somatic evidence of alignment. That's your nervous system saying, we chose coherence over conflict, and now we can truly rest.
And that feeling of peace brings us to the core definition we're using today.
Which is that the highest self is not the future you with everything figured out. Your highest self is simply the version of you who is most aligned in this present moment.
But aligned can feel like such an abstract spiritual buzzword.
It can. So let's ground it with 3 distinct pillars.
Okay.
Pillar 1, aligned with your values. This is your moral compass. When you choose integrity over impulse, even when it's hard or inconvenient, you're aligned.
You're choosing your deep character over a temporary emotional urge.
Pillar 2, aligned with your nervous system. This is the physiological piece. When you choose regulation and calm over reactivity and defense, you're aligned.
So prioritizing your internal sense of safety over trying to control the external outcome.
Which is foundational.
Yeah.
Without nervous system alignment, your values often crumble under stress.
And pillar 3.
The future-oriented element, aligned with the future you actually want to inhabit. Every choice, every reaction reinforces the path toward that future.
If you want a peaceful future, you have to choose peaceful responses now.
If you want a future of self-trust, you must choose integrity now.
So the mechanism of access here is key. The highest self already exists as a state of frequency.
Right. You don't create it through struggle. You access it through intention and choice. Think of it like a radio. The station is always broadcasting. Your job is to tune the dial.
And every single time you make one of these coherence choices, you're tuning in.
Every time you pause instead of react.
Every time you choose dignity over defensiveness.
Every time you act from internal coherence instead of old conditioning.
You're literally turning the dial to stabilize that frequency.
This is where we need to spend some serious time. Because the connection between the spiritual idea of frequency and the measurable reality of neurobiology is where the true deep dive happens.
Let's bridge that gap. Science and spirit, starting with how the brain processes identity.
When we talk about identity, we have to look at how the brain constructs our reality. A great accessible entry point is Dr. James Clear's work on identity-based habits.
Right. He emphasizes that lasting change doesn't come from setting goals, which are outcomes, but from shifting your identity.
You don't aim to get rich. You aim to become the kind of person who manages money wisely.
So if you act from an old, constrained self-concept like the identity of being chronically overwhelmed or someone who's always a victim,
Being the predictive machine it is.
will prioritize and seek out outcomes and interpretations that match that identity.
It creates a self-fulfilling prophecy loop. If your self-concept is, I'm always defensive under pressure, your brain literally constructs the emotion of defensiveness first. The stress response fires faster.
This is so powerfully supported by Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett's work on constructed emotion. She argues that our brains are constantly making predictions based on our concept of self and past experiences.
So if your brain predicts a defensive, stressful outcome, it automatically prepares your body for fight or flight.
Even if the actual threat is just a mildly worded email.
Exactly. The brain prioritizes the familiar state because familiarity is interpreted as safety, even if that familiar state is miserable. The old identity is very comfortable with chaos.
So the highest self, then, is the act of consciously interrupting that predictive loop.
When you pause and ask, what would my highest self do? You are essentially forcing your brain to adopt a temporary different self-concept.
You're introducing a new possibility,
Yeah.
which immediately requires the brain to update its expectations.
And this link between present choice and future identity is beautifully grounded in visualization research. Dr. Hal Hershfield's work on future self-continuity is fascinating.
His work showed that people who feel more connected to their future selves, meaning they don't see that future self as a stranger.
They make significantly more aligned long-term decisions today.
Which makes perfect sense in this context. If you see the aligned version of yourself as foreign or impossible, your brain won't invest in that outcome.
But if you mentally rehearse acting as your aligned self or just visit that frequency,
your nervous system starts to recognize that state as familiar. You're closing the emotional distance between the present you and the highest self you're capable of being.
we can also layer on the work of Dr. Hazel Marcus and Dr. Paula Nurius, who developed possible selves theory. They argued that our ideal, hoped-for selves directly influence our current motivation and emotional regulation.
So imagine your aligned self isn't just fantasy.
No, it's an active form of present self-regulation. It gives your brain a template for the emotional state you want.
Now let's bring in a critical layer, the nervous system itself. Dr. Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory gives us the physiological key to understanding alignment as a frequency.
This is essential. The highest self is, physiologically, the ventral vagal state.
Let's unpack that because it's huge. Our nervous system works on a hierarchy. When we're safe and regulated, we're in the ventral vagal complex, the social engagement system.
This is the state of genuine connection, clarity, calm, and emotional availability. This regulated state is the energetic foundation of alignment, coherence, and the highest self-frequency.
Right. And when we encounter a perceived threat, an email, a critical look, the system shifts down. We might go into the sympathetic state, which is fight or flight.
The path of reactivity, defensiveness, and urgency.
Or in extreme cases, the dorsal vagal state, freeze or shut down, the path of avoidance.
So if you feel that tightness in your chest or the urge to immediately fight back, your body has physiologically shifted out of the highest self-frequency and into a survival frequency.
The highest self isn't just a state of mind.
It's a state of body. The regulated ventral vagal state. The moment you pause, breathe, or use regulating touch, you are sending a physiological signal of safety, which allows the ventral vagal system to come back online.
And this is why the spiritual language of coherence and resonance works so well. Dr. Joe Dispenza's work shows that repeated emotional and mental states reinforce identity and create an electromagnetic signature.
You don't manifest by forcing things.
You manifest by becoming a consistent, stable frequency. When your nervous system is consistently regulated in that ventral vagal state, your electromagnetic signature is stable and coherent.
And that stable, coherent frequency attracts and supports outcomes that match it.
If your internal state is chaos and defensiveness, you will attract chaos and defensiveness. If your internal state is clarity and peace, you'll attract and perceive clarity and peace.
Even in challenging environments.
And if we look at identity purely as a state of presence, rather than a story about the past, we're right in line with Eckhart Tolle's work.
The highest self isn't defined by your ego's story of achievements or failures.
It's the pure consciousness of who you are right now, free from past conditioning. That presence is the highest self.
Before we move on, I want to clarify something. You mentioned the highest self isn't always nice. How do we make sure that choosing our highest self frequency doesn't just become selfish or spiritual bypassing?
Yeah, that is the crucial distinction.
Mm.
Spiritual bypassing is when we use spiritual concepts like peace to avoid necessary confrontation, pain, or setting boundaries.
It's avoidance.
Exactly. It's rooted in the fear of discomfort. The highest self is the opposite of that.
The highest self, operating from that grounded ventral vagal state, is secure. It's capable of feeling discomfort, fear, or anger, and still responding with clarity and self-respect.
Right. So if your highest self determines that the most coherent action is to speak a difficult truth, or set a painful boundary, or walk away from something draining, that is alignment.
The intention is the filter.
Selfishness is rooted in the ego's demand for control and validation. Alignment is rooted in the soul's demand for integrity and peace.
So an aligned boundary actually protects the integrity of your being.
Which then allows you to be more present and genuinely generous with others instead of being resentful.
That clarity helps us shift from just understanding the theory to actually experiencing the practice. The highest self is something you practice being.
And then that practice starts now, in the micro moments.
So we're moving into practical tools. And you don't need a perfectly quiet room or a meditation cushion for this.
We're going to walk through these conversationally, focusing on the sensory experience so you can practice them instantly in your daily life.
Okay, let's start with tool 1, the future self visit. The purpose here isn't to imagine a flawless, perfect version of you. It's to immediately tune into the energetic quality of the regulated, aligned self, just to make that frequency feel familiar.
So just take a gentle breath in. And as you exhale, just allow your body to settle a little more deeply. You don't even need to close your eyes. Just bring your attention inward.
Now imagine a version of yourself standing just a few feet ahead of you. This version is deeply aligned with their values. They're steady, not rushed, not performing.
They're just present.
Now notice the subtle details of their posture and their presence. If they're the embodiment of clarity, how do their shoulders sit?
Probably relaxed, but upright. Is their body grounded, or is there tension? Just observe the physical expression of alignment, that ventral vagal safety.
Notice the rhythm of their breathing. Is it slow, even, unforced.
And feel the emotional tone they carry. There's no anxiety, no need to prove anything, just deep, calm, clarity, and self-trust. You're tuning the dial to that stable frequency.
Now here is the crucial step of integration, connecting that image to your current life.
Bring to mind a recent situation that caused you stress. A difficult conversation, a feeling of overwhelm, a decision you're grappling with.
Now ask the aligned self this one question. How do you move through moments like the one I'm facing right now?
And trust the first sensation that arises. It might be a word, a single image, or just a physical softening in your body. It might be the word wait, or the phrase, I don't need to fix this.
This aligned self isn't someone you're becoming someday. This is a frequency you can step into right now.
So take one imaginary step forward, into that energy. Notice what shifts in your body when you occupy that space.
The jaw softens, your core feels more grounded. You're embodying the state that informs better decisions.
And the power of this visit is that it gives you an immediate reference point. When the chaos starts, you simply recall the feeling of that posture.
Which brings us to tool 2, the highest self-decision filter. This is how we use that reference point in real time.
Before you respond to that emotionally charged email, before you commit to something out of obligation, before you decide how to react to a conflict.
Pause.
Yes. That pause, even for 3 seconds, is the sacred space for alignment. It's the moment you interrupt the brain's automatic conditioned loop.
And in that pause, you ask the core inquiry. What choice keeps me aligned with my highest self?
But we have to be disciplined about what we're not asking. The ego is tricky. We're not asking, what choice minimizes discomfort?
Or what choice makes me look good?
Or what choice proves I'm right?
The focus has to be purely on maintaining that internal coherence. If you ask genuinely, the answer will always serve your long-term peace and integrity.
Sometimes the highest self-choice is staying quiet and letting a situation resolve itself. Knowing your energy isn't required.
Other times, the answer is speaking up, setting a boundary, or walking away completely, even if that means temporarily disappointing someone else.
And the more often you run your choices through this filter, the more familiar that coherent identity becomes to your nervous system.
Alignment stops feeling like effort. It starts to feel like a deeply rooted, calm sense of belonging.
Feels like home.
And since most of our life is lived in the small spaces, the micro moments, that's where we focus a final tool.
You don't need a dramatic life event to practice this frequency shift.
This is tool 3, the daily alignment question. This is a practice you can use dozens of times a day. Every time you switch tasks, feel a surge of stress, or fitting a conversation.
Just quietly ask yourself, what would my highest self choose right now?
And the beauty is, the answers are often so simple, mundane even, and physiological, but they have a profound energetic impact.
They're often signals from your nervous system seeking regulation.
The answer might be stand up and stretch.
Drink water.
Send the honest, kind message instead of the reactive one.
Rest instead of pushing through exhaustion. Go outside for 5 minutes.
These are micro choices of regulation. Every time you choose an alignment, you are casting a vote for that new identity. You're telling your nervous system.
This is who we are now. We prioritize our peace, our hydration, and our coherence.
The cumulative effect of these small choices is what defines the stable frequency of your highest self.
So as we move into the final stages of practice, remember this through line. You don't need to overhaul your entire life to live as your highest self.
You just need to recognize the hundreds of micro moments where a choice is available and choose alignment gently, consistently, and with self-compassion.
Now that we've defined the frequency and accessed it, we need to talk about the reality of the practice.
Manifestation debug mode.
Exactly. Because even when you are deeply familiar with the highest self frequency, you will still slip into old identities. That is guaranteed.
And we have to normalize this. Slipping into old identities is conditioning. It's not a flaw in your character.
We're wired for the familiar. And those old patterns of defense, self-criticism, and reactivity are deeply grooved in our neural pathways.
Alignment isn't measured by never reacting. It's measured by how quickly and kindly you return to coherence.
So if you're listening right now and thinking about something you did yesterday that felt totally misaligned, a reactive text, an outburst, excessive worry,
You're not failing, you're human.
and the moment you notice the slip is the opportunity for the single biggest shift. That moment of awareness is the highest self tapping you on the shoulder.
We need to know the signals of the slip. What are the signs that your nervous system has slipped out of that ventral vagal state and is running an old defensive program?
Pay attention to your internal experience. Look for a sense of disproportionate urgency, that feeling like you need to respond right now or everything will fall apart.
Classic sympathetic response.
And the need to compulsively explain yourself over and over, hoping to gain external validation or prove your version of the truth.
Which comes from low self-trust.
Also, the physical signals. That tight, contracted feeling in your chest, your diaphragm, or your jaw, a physical sense of armor closing down.
If you prioritize being right more than wanting to be at peace, that's a clear sign of the old ego-driven identity.
And finally, the persistent mental replaying of conversations long after they're over. That rumination is the old identity desperately trying to find a better line, a better argument.
It's the brain seeking closure through control rather than settling into present safety.
And none of these signs mean you failed. They just mean you are operating from conditioning, and the moment you notice it.
That's the moment alignment becomes available again.
So let's walk through a real-time recentering exercise. The goal is to return to coherence without force, without fixing, without self-judgment. This is your Debug Mode reset button.
Just bring your attention here. Take a slow, gentle breath in through your nose, expanding your ribs slightly. And let it out gently through your mouth, allowing your jaw to soften.
Now, place one hand gently on your chest or your stomach somewhere on your torso. This is regulating touch. Allow your body to feel that contact.
This tactile input is a direct signal to your nervous system. It bypasses the cognitive loop and says, I am safe right now.
Silently, name what's happening without judgment. You might just say, I'm activated, or I'm feeling that familiar defensiveness. I'm caught in the need to be right.
Notice how labeling the state creates a small but significant space between you and the feeling itself.
Next, we don't fight the feeling. Instead, imagine gently turning down the volume on that old identity, like a stereo knob. You're not shutting it off, you're not forcing silence.
You are simply lowering the intensity of the feeling, de-escalating the drama of the moment.
Now, return your attention to your breath, and let's lengthen the exhale. Inhale slowly. Exhale subtly, longer than the inhale.
This action physically engages the vagus nerve. It sends a direct signal of safety to your brain, which facilitates the shift back into that coherent ventral vagal state.
As you breathe, allow your shoulders to soften, your jaw to unclench. Now, invite the highest self back, not as an effort, but as a presence.
Ask quietly, what would alignment feel like right now?
Let the answer come as a somatic sensation, maybe steadiness, spaciousness, or compassion flowing into your chest. And now speak this affirmation to yourself, gently but clearly. I choose to return to coherence.
That is the reset. It's not a grand gesture. It's simply a return to your inherent physiological coherence.
And every time you recenter, instead of criticizing yourself for the slip, you strengthen the pathway back to the highest self frequency.
We've grounded the highest self in science, integrated it with choice, and provided a debug mode for when you inevitably slip.
Now, let's move into a deeper integration. A final, gentle embodiment where you don't just remember your highest self.
You allow your physical being to inhabit that frequency.
Get comfortable. Allow your body to settle where it is. Allow your breath to become your anchor. With each exhale, feel your body sink a little more into the chair or the ground beneath you.
Notice any residual tension. Maybe a furrowed brow or clenching in your stomach. Just invite a little softening.
Now gently imagine yourself standing in a quiet, open space. The air here is calm and it feels deeply supportive.
You observe the presence of your highest self nearby. This presence is deeply grounded, assured, and completely at ease.
Take a moment to truly observe this version of you. Notice the quiet confidence, the slow, even breath, the lack of rush or performance.
This is the ventral vagal state fully expressed in posture and presence.
As you watch, acknowledge the profound truth. They are not separate from you. They are simply you, tuned to a stable, coherent frequency that is currently accessible.
You are invited to step closer. Take one conscious step forward. As you do, notice how your own physical posture begins to shift naturally.
Your spine lengthens. Your shoulders settle back and down.
Take another step. Notice your breath deepening without effort. Your thoughts soften like static turning down on a radio dial.
You are moving closer to resonance.
Now take one final, gentle step. And seamlessly, effortlessly step into the energy of your highest self. There's no merging required, just a full, stable alignment.
And notice what changes in your physical body. A deep warmth or spaciousness in your chest. A groundedness in your legs. And a profound sense of clarity behind your eyes. This is what alignment feels like.
From this place of grounded assurance, briefly bring to mind a triggering life situation. Just lightly, don't dive into the details.
And notice how that issue looks different from the centered frequency. It looks less urgent, less demanding of your immediate reactive energy.
Ask yourself quietly in this posture of peace, how does my highest self respond to this situation? Trust the sensation. It might be a clear, simple answer like observe or wait until tomorrow.
Now anchor this feeling deeply. Place a hand on your body wherever feels most connected to this warmth and clarity. And silently affirm, this clarity is available to me.
Take a breath. This frequency lives in me.
Allow this energy to settle, making it more familiar, more accessible. When you are ready, slowly bring your awareness back to the room, carrying this settled frequency with you.
And know that you don't need to remember every word of that visualization. Your body remembers the feeling.
And you can return to it with one breath, one pause, one conscious choice by recalling that posture of presence.
Before we wrap up, we want to give you tools to solidify this. Journaling is a powerful form of integration and embodiment.
It moves insight from the intellectual realm into a tangible physical form. You're essentially giving your highest self frequency a stable output.
This isn't about writing beautifully. It's about writing from awareness, using language to reinforce that identity shift we talked about earlier.
So reflection prompt 1, name me the frequency. Start with the question, what qualities does my highest self embody? And focus on states versus traits.
So instead of writing, I am confident, which is a trait, right? I am calm in the face of uncertainty, or I am grounded and self-trusting even before external results appear.
Describe in detail how this version of you moves through stress. How do they handle rejection? How do they respond when they make a mistake?
Writing this down helps your brain recognize this state as a viable, accessible identity. It reinforces those neural pathways of alignment.
Reflection prompt 2. Recognizing where it's already alive. The highest self is not hypothetical. Ask, where in my life do I already express this identity effortlessly?
Maybe you're aligned when you're creating art, or when you're fully rested, when you're talking to children, or setting boundaries with certain people.
Write about specific recent examples. A conversation where you stayed grounded despite being provoked. A decision you made without second-guessing that just felt true.
This reinforces a crucial message to your nervous system. You're not starting from zero. You have evidence that this frequency already lives within you.
Reflection prompt 3. Identifying the practice arenas. Frame your triggers and your patterns not as failures, but as targeted practice opportunities. Explore this question.
What situations or specific emotional patterns invite me to practice this frequency more often?
Write about your repeating triggers, the familiar arguments, the moments you feel overwhelmed. Then gently reframe each one.
Instead of seeing it as a problem, right? This is a practice arena for my highest self to choose presence over panic. That shifts you immediately from self-judgment into self-leadership.
And finally, reflection prompt 4. Writing from the highest self. At the top of the new page, write, "From my highest self." And then just let yourself write a short, clear message to your present self.
Don't censor it. Don't overthink it. Just allow that highest, most regulated frequency to communicate what you need to hear most clearly.
Permission to rest, assurance of safety, or clarity about a next step.
This language exercise is alignment expressing itself. It reinforces that internal voice of coherence over the external noise of conditioning.
Every time you return to these pages, you reinforce the stable frequency of your highest self.
As we gently gather everything we've explored today, we just want to leave you with a clear roadmap of support.
We began by reframing the highest self, not as a distant goal, but as a living, accessible frequency.
An energetic posture rooted in nervous system safety. We analyzed the story of choice, seeing how identity, not circumstance, dictates the cost of our actions.
We grounded this in deep science, discussing how the brain organizes itself around identity and prediction. And we tied that directly to polyvagal theory, showing that the highest self-frequency is physiologically the ventral vagal state of regulation.
We then provided the practical tools, the future self visit to tune the dial, the decision filter for active choice, and the daily alignment question for micro moments.
And we offered the debug mode reset, a physiological path to return to coherence kindly and quickly.
And finally, we moved into deep embodiment and reflection, giving you tools to make this frequency feel native and tangible within your body.
If you feel like that was a lot of information, let's distill the final wisdom down to one key soundbite you can carry with you.
Here it is. Your highest self is not distant. It is your most coherent frequency available in your next conscious breath.
It is not earned. It is not someday.
It is accessible in your very next choice.
As an actionable step today, we encourage you to identify one specific moment where you can choose alignment.
One pause before responding. One choice to prioritize rest over pushing through. And notice how it feels to design your future in real time, rather than passively accepting the conditioned response.
As we close this deep dive, I want to gently widen the lens, because the frequency you choose quietly shapes the world around you.
Instead of asking, what do I need to fix? This deep dive invites you to ask, who do I choose to be as I move forward?
When you choose your highest self, even in small, ordinary moments, you create a profound ripple.
You bring more regulated calm into conversations that could have escalated. You bring clarity into decisions that affect others. You stabilize the environment simply by stabilizing yourself.
That is how alignment operates. It creates safety. A better life doesn't start with doing more. It starts with choosing coherence more often.
And a better world begins when people like you decide to live from that regulated, integrated frequency instead of constant reactivity.
So as you step forward, use this framework as a reference point, not a rule book.
Practice responding instead of reacting. Choose presence over urgency, integrity over impulse. Not perfectly, but consistently.
And remember this, every aligned choice you make stabilizes the present moment for you and for everyone you touch. Thank you for being here, and thank you for choosing awareness.
Until next time, stay grounded, stay aligned, and keep tuning in to what feels true.